We begin the current Daf Yomi this Beruchas Daf Gimel on Madalf. We begin 14 lines down at the top of the Yomid. We'll quickly review what we spoke about in the previous Daf Yud Beis. We spoke about, there was a continuation on Beruchas Kriyishma, which was the theme that we discussed at the end of the first parak, and we're going to continue discussing in the second parak, regarding that the Kahanim had a different shacharis, and one of the things was that they said the Ten Commandments, we don't do that because of the heretics. They're going to claim that's the only thing we have that was given to us by Hashem. We got into related discussion of the previous Mishnah regarding the chasimas habracha, the end of the bracha, and then we had a whole discussion, what's the primary part of the bracha? If you had intent for the wrong thing by baruch to Hashem, then you said the right ending, is that going to work or not? The Gemara ultimately does not answer that question. Then we continued on the theme of, again, the Mishnah regarding Beruchas Kriyishma. In the morning we say Emes V'Yatzav, at nighttime by the Beruchas Kriyishma we say Emes V'Emunah, and then there was a certain Amar that had many different teachings relating to the halachas of Tefillah and other things. Then we continued in a related idea of adding in something else to the Beruchas Kriyishma, like the Kahanim did Aseret Adibros. The Gemara then discussed, why don't we add the Parshas Balak, because there it says Yitzis Mitzrayim. It also mentions Shachav Kari, Mi Kamena, like a B'Shachav V'Kamech. We said you can't kiss Tircha D'Tzibura, and also you can't just pull out one pasuk. Then why do we say Vayomer, which then actually the Mishnah right after, which was on the last Mishnah we had, that says we mentioned Vayomer at nighttime too, because it has 5 seminal ideas, one of them being Yitzis Mitzrayim, which is what the Mishnah actually has a machlekes. Do we mention Yitzis Mitzrayim or not? We rule that we do say Yitzis Mitzrayim at nighttime, which was actually machlekes regarding kol. Does the word kol come to include Yomai Mashiach, or does the word kol come to include the night times too? Now that's where we continue, because related to the idea of the machlekes Yitzis Mitzrayim, there was a machlekes, there was a pasuk said that we're not going to mention Yitzis Mitzrayim anymore once Mashiach comes. So the Gemara says that one opinion holds, yeah, we're not going to say it anymore. The other one says, it's not that we're not going to say it anymore, it's going to be secondary. It's not going to be the primary thing. We're going to talk about, wow, God saved us. All the nations of the world, the apocalypse were trying to kill us, and we were saved. And we find the same thing by Yaakov Avinu. Although God said to Yaakov Avinu, okay, your name's not Yaakov anymore, your name's Yisrael, but it's not that he's not called anymore. As our Gemara is going to actually quote that on our Ahmed, that no, he was later called by Hashem himself Yaakov. Rather, it's that it's going to be secondary. Yitzis Mitzrayim also could be that by, it's going to be Moshe Mashiach. It's just not going to be primary, it's going to be secondary. Now, let's just introduce what we're going to speak about today on this daf, that we're going to continue on that theme regarding the changing of the name. That actually Avram Avinu is different than Yaakov Avinu, although by Yaakov Avinu that you're allowed to still call him Yaakov, even though his name was changed to Yisrael. Avram Avinu is actually a prohibition to call him Avram. His name was Avram Avinu. You're done. Then we're going to move into the second parak, which is going to continue on the theme of Hilchas Kriyishma and its brachas, and the Mishnah is going to open up with the halach of kavana, and regarding the halach of hefsek. 2 halachas primarily the Mishnah is going to talk about, that you have to have intent to fulfill the mitzvah, and you're not allowed to interrupt in the middle of Kriyishma, in the middle of the Beruchas Kriyishma. Now, important thing to note, which the Gemara is not going to say explicitly, but there's 2 types of kavanas that we're going to be talking about. One is the kavana to fulfill the mitzvah. You're intending, I am coming now to fulfill the mitzvah. And also a different type of kavana, which is generally used in the colloquial sense, is the intent, meaning of the translation of the focus, meaning are you understanding the translation of the words when you're saying the words? Then we're going to have a machlekes that the Mishnah is going to mention. We're not going to talk about it in this daf, but the Mishnah mentions when we talk about the halacha of there are certain times you're allowed to interrupt in the middle of the kriyishma on the brachas. Where you're allowed to interrupt and for whom. It's not so simple for whom you're allowed to interrupt. It's when someone else, you're greeting someone else, and also where that's going to be. And then the Mishnah is going to conclude the third idea that the Mishnah is going to talk about is the reason for the order of Shema. Why do we have the parshas, the Shema v'havta, v'hayim shemaya, and then v'yemer. Now the Gemara is going to open up regarding that. It sounds like our Mishnah says you have to have kavanah for kriyishma. So the Gemara is going to assume that means to say that mitzvah strichas kavanah. You have to have kavanah for the mitzvah. The Gemara says not necessarily so. It might just mean that you have to have kavanah for the reading itself, and not just to be totally distracted. But it doesn't necessarily mean that mitzvah strichas kavanah. Now the Gemara is going to bring a machlekes regarding 2 words in the Shema, which is a lishitasam. Rebbe and the Chacham disagree in regarding to both these words. When it says Shema, does it mean hashmila aznacha, that you have to hear the words you yourself are saying? Or does it mean no, b'chaloshan shater shemeh, you could say it in any language that you want to? And when it says v'hayu, which means like it's got to be the way it is, the word v'hayu throughout Shas always connotes it has to be this way. So Rebbe is going to say it means yes, because you have to read it in Lashon HaKodesh the way it's written. And the Chacham are going to say that no, it just can't be backwards. It has to be in that order, but you can't start reading Visharecha, Mezuzah, Besecha, you can't start reading it backwards. And because primarily the machlekes is, could you say it in any language or in Lashon HaKodesh, it's just because they have a disagreement regarding how to read these 2 words. The Gemara then is going to discuss, well, okay, by Shema they're saying their opinions. What's with the rest of the Torah? Does that mean the rest of the Torah is exactly the opposite? Why are you saying Shema has, let's say, in any language? Does that mean B'chalat Torah has to be Lashon HaKodesh? The Gemara is going to say not necessarily so. Then we'll continue on the theme about focus. Like we said, there's two types of focus we're talking about. The Mishnah is talking about kavana of the mitzvah. Then, as to fulfill the mitzvah. Then our Gemara is going to continue on a different type of related focus, which is translation, focusing on the words itself. When it says in the pasuk in Shema, Alav Avecha, that means you have to have kavanah. Now, there's four different opinions we're going to be mentioning in the Gemara regarding up until when do you need to have kavanah. Rabbi Eliezer says the first two or three psukim, it's Machlokes Rashi and Taisus, when it says until the words Alav Avecha, does that mean the first two or three psukim? Rabbi Yechon is going to tell us the whole first parasha of Shema and Vahavta, and although it says in the second parasha also Alav Avchem, we're going to see in the Gemara that just means to say where you're supposed to put the tefillin, but it doesn't mean regarding focus. The third opinion is that of Rabbi Yeshua. He holds no, actually both parashas, as it says Alav Avchem, of Shema, of Vahavta, and V'hai b'Shema require kavana. Remeir, and that's how we rule, as Taisus brings, only the first pasuk, because Alav Avchem only means kavana, and he says that only the first pasuk requires kavana. Those are four different opinions we're going to see. Where do you have to have kavana when you're saying the Shema? Then we're going to continue with, we know that people say echad, to be marich, to be lengthy, it's not on the whole word, it's actually on the dalet, and actually Shulchan Aruch Harav says it's not even to say the dalet long, it's only on kavana, as we'll see when we say Rashi. Rebbe's custom that only the first pasuk he would have kavana, he would only say that. Also that a halacha not to lie on your back in general, and when you're saying krishma, you can't even lay on your back even on a tilt. Although generally you're allowed to lay on your back on a tilt, but krishma, that's not appropriate. And finally, the Gemara is going to make a clarification of the Mishnah regarding the girsa of Meshib. The Mishnah is going to be talking about when you're allowed to greet someone and respond to a greeting. It's more lenient when you're just responding. And the Gemara is going to say it seems to be that there's no machlokes, and the Gemara is going to have to make a clarification of what does it mean, Umeshim. So we begin, again, like we said, 14 lines down at the top of the Amud. Again, this shiur is co-sponsored by the Talmud River Learning Center, Daf Yomi, and by Torah Anytime. So we begin where the Gemara continues the theme of the previous Daf, which was talking about the changing of the names by Yaakov, because it related to the changing of the secondary elements of Yetzias Mitzrayim being secondary to the Yomei Mashiach. So now the Gemara quotes a pasuk in Divrei Yom Aleph. The pasuk says, Avram hu Avraham. Avram is the one who is Avram. Which says the Gemara, what is that? What's the pasuk telling us? Betchila nasa avla Aram. The word Avram is a combination, it's a compound word. Originally he was the Av, the father, La Aram, which was his hometown, where he came from Aram, like the pasuk says in Yeshua, on the other side of the river, your fathers dwelt, as it says in Beruchas Daf, El Aram Naraim, Elir Nachar, he was in Aram, so he was first Avram, at the end he became a father of the whole entire world, which like the pasuk says in Beruchas Yud Zayin, Av Hamoin Goyim, he was the father of the multitudes of the nations, that's Avraham. The Reish is, you have to know what the Reish is, but that's Avham, that's Avraham. Avram first, and then Avraham. He became Av of Hamoin Goyim. Now, so too Sarai, he's Sarah. So too Sarai, she was originally called Sarai, then she became Sarah. As the Gemara explains, Betchila nasa Sarai le'umasa. First, Sarai is my princess, my queen. That's in the singular. First, she was only a princess for her nation. Sarah, in the general wording, Sarah, the princess, l'chalam kuli, she became the queen of the whole entire world. Now, Tani Bakapar taught a brisa. Kalakar Avram, whoever calls Avram Avinu Avram, he violates a positive commandment. Shemaka says in Bereshis, God tells him, Avram, your name is going to be Avram, which the inference is, don't say Avram, and that's what's called a lav machlal say, that you, from the positive commandment, you see you're not supposed to call Avram. Now, Rabbi Lezam, he says, not only is it violating the positive commandment, you're violating a negative prohibition. It says over there, and your name is not going to be called anymore Avram. So El Me'ata says the Gemara, if that's the case, why only Avraham Avinu? Hakar Sarah Sarai Hachanami. If someone calls Sarah Sarai, it should be the same thing. Says the Gemara, no Hasam Kuchabrichu Amala Avraham. The commentaries try to find exactly where you see this in the pasuk, but God said to Avram himself, it wasn't to the whole world. For you, Avram, Sarai Ishtachali Tikra Eshama Sarai Ki Sarah Shama. For you, your wife's name is changed. But for the whole world, not necessarily so. And if anyone else calls her Sarai, has not violated any precepts. Now, says the Gemara, if that's the case, so going back to what we said on the top of the summit from the previous Daf, Yaakov Hachanami. If someone calls Yaakov should also violate an Isser, because God also told him, your name is not Yaakov anymore, it's Yisrael. Says the Gemara, no Shani Hasan, there it's different. The Hada Hadre Krug, because there the pasuk itself calls Yaakov after his name was changed to Yisrael. The Ksilik says in the pasuk, God appeared to Yisrael in the appearance of the nighttime when he's going down to Egypt. Yaakov, he calls him Yaakov. Obviously, it's not an Isser because God himself calls him Yaakov, as we said in the previous stuff. It's just that his name became secondary and the primary became Yisrael, whereas Avram Avinu, he totally lost the name Avram. He became Avram. Now, but the Gemara asks on this interpretation of Bar Kapara, it says you violate a law when you call Avram Avinu Avram. Masav Rabbi Yissi bar Avram. B'yitem B'samsi was Rabbi Yissi bar Zvida. From a pasuk in Nehemiah, the pasuk says, "Atu hu Hashem lekim." You are Hashem, the God, Asher becharta ba'Avram, that chose Avram. And this is years later, and he's calling him Avram. You're not allowed to call him Avram. Says the Gemara, no. Amalei said to him, "Hasam navi hu dekumesadu l'shivchei derachmanam." It's going in the historical context. There, the prophet is organizing the praise of God, my dahava me'ikaru, what it originally was. As the pasuk says, as we say in Vayevarach David, Asher becharta bai, that you chose who? When he was called Avram, and then you v'samta shmei Avraham, and then you called him Avram. So we're not calling him Avram. We're calling him Avram. We're just going, that person who was Avram, you then chose him and made him into Avraham. That's who we praise you, God, because you did that to Avram Avinu. You gave his people the 7 lands of Eretz Canaan, but we're not calling him Avram. It's just going in the past tense. We shall return to the first parak, Masechtas Beruchas, parak Me'emisai, which we spoke about primarily the laws of Kriyishma and its brachas. Mazel Tov, Mitzvah. We should be Messiah many more prakim and more than that. And with that, we begin the second parak in Masechtas Beruchas, parak Hayikar, which continues on this theme regarding the halachas of Kriyishma and its brachas. Specifically, our Mishnah is going to focus on primarily the halachas of hefsek, about interruption. You're not supposed to interrupt. In some places, you could interrupt in the middle of Kriyishma. Says the Mishnah, Hayikar b'Torah. Someone was reading, he was opening up a Sefer Torah, he was reading in the Torah, or not a Sefer Torah, Chumash, he was reading from the Torah, the Parasha of Kriyishma. And it happens to be, V'gizman HaMikra, it's a time of reciting the Kriyishma of the morning. So says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Im Kiven Liba, if he had in mind, so then Yatzei fulfilled his obligation, because you have to focus, you have to have the intent, and this is the idea of the mitzvah itself. That was the 2 types of focus we spoke about, just to have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah. If you're just reading and not having in mind, you haven't fulfilled the obligation, but if you have in mind, you fulfill the obligation. That goes now into a second idea, which we spoke about. It's the halacha of hefsek. Says the Mishnah as follows: Biprakim, by the chapters, meaning between the chapters, which the Mishnah later on, a later Mishnah is going to explain what are the chapters, what are the stops in between the Kriyishma. It's between the first bracha of Kriyishma and the second bracha of Kriyishma, between the second bracha of Kriyishma and Shema, so on and so forth. So between the chapters, so you have the following halacha, and there's some machlekes in our Mishnah. First opinion says, Shail, you could inquire b'mnei hakavod, because of someone's honor. Means let's say a respectable person, this is the halacha really, the primary halacha is that if there's a respectable person that it's fit to go ahead and greet him when he comes, so between the chapters you're allowed to greet him. And Umay should be also allowed to return his greeting. If let's say he greets you, you're allowed to greet him, and the Gemara is going to ask, wait a second, if you're allowed to greet him, which is more of a leniency, because if you're responding, okay, what are you going to do? Someone's greeting you. So the Gemara is going to ask, and that's what we said all the way at the end, the Gemara is going to make a clarification of this. It sounds a little bit redundant, if not unnecessary. If you're allowed to greet him, for sure you're allowed to return his greeting. But that's how it's originally read. Now, ube'emtza, now in middle of the blessing, or middle of the parasha, up until now we just spoke about between the chapters. Let's say middle of the chapter itself. Let's say middle of Shema, middle of one of the psukim, someone comes and it comes to your way. So then it's little more stringent. You could greet someone if it's, and this is the halacha too, if you're afraid of him, that he shouldn't kill you, then even in the middle of the parashas of Kriyishma or the Bechas Kriyishma, you're allowed to greet him, but because of just a dignified person, that you can't do in the middle of the parashas. If he greets you, you're allowed to return his greeting. That's Divrei Meir. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, he's a little bit more lenient. The Gemara is going to explain the machlekes because, as originally it's read before the clarification, it sounds like they're saying the same thing by default. But Rabbi Yehuda says a little bit more lenient, and that's actually the halacha follows like Rabbi Yehuda. Be'emtza, middle of the parashas of Kriyishma, shoyl b'mnei hayira, which is the same as Remeir. You're allowed to greet someone that you're afraid of, but umeishav b'mnei hakavod. If someone greets you, even if it's not someone that you're afraid of, it's someone that's just an honorable person, you're allowed to return his greeting. Now, ubeprakim, and between the chapters, which is more lenient, shoyl b'mnei hakavod, you could greet someone that's a dignified person. Umeishav shalom l'chol adam. Any person who greets you, again, between the chapters, and this is the primary halacha, although the custom is obviously not to usually return the greeting. But any person, he says, between the chapters, if he greets you, you're allowed to return his greeting. Now, says the Mishnah, as we mentioned, Elohin bein haprakim. What's considered between the chapters? So, bein bracha rishayin l'shniya, between the first bracha, which is Yitzhar, and the second bracha of Ahavasayim. That's considered between the chapters. Bein shni l'shma, between Ahavarabba and Shema. Bein shema l'hoyim shemaya. Bein v'hoyim shemaya l'vayemer. Because then you finish Shema and you're going on to the next of the Bechas Kriyishma, which starts Emes V'Yatzev. Now, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and this is the halacha. Between Hashem Elokeichem and Emes V'Yatzev, Lo Yafsik, one is not supposed to interrupt. The Gemara on the next daf, and Daf Yudal is going to explain what's the reason why that is. Isn't this a regular Bein HaPrakim like we have, and everyone agrees to that? So we're going to see why that is. But between Hashem Elokeichem and the word Emes is not really part of the parish of Shema. Emes is part of Emes V'Yatzev Benachin. But between those two parishes, you're not supposed to interrupt. Now, the third theme that we spoke about, and we wrote down the board that the Mishnah talks about, is the order of the parashas of Kriya Shema. It says, Lama kadma parasha Shema l'vayim Shema. Why is it that we put in the parasha of Shema before the parasha of Vayim Shema? It says the Mishnah, because Shema and the parasha of Ahavta is accepting the yoke, the sovereignty of God on you first, and then you accept on yourself the yoke of mitzvahs, which Bahaya Shema talks about El Mitzvah to do all the mitzvahs. So first accept God's sovereignty, because you first have to accept the king, and then you'll do his commandments. Now, why we have Vayim Shemaya and then the third parasha of Yomi? Because the parasha of Vayim applies to both day and by night time. Because in parasha of Vayim it talks about learning Torah, like it says in the Devarim Yadal. You should teach it to your sons. Talks about learning Torah, and Torah applies to both day and night time. The third parasha is more limited, and therefore it's the third parasha. It only applies by daytime, because the third parasha talks about the parasha of tzitzis, which only applies during the daytime, as the Gemara says in Shabbos Daf Chav Zayim Beis. Says Re'isim Aisa, you should see it, which excludes a nighttime garment, which you can't see because at nighttime. Therefore, that's the order of Shema. First Shema, which is Kabbal's Al Mach Shemaim, Vayim Shema, which is Kabbal's Al Mitzvahs, and Yomi, which is just the parasha of tzitzis, which only applies during the daytime. Now, the Gemara makes an inference from the fact that the opening halach of our Mishnah said, if you were reading from the Torah and it came time for Ketzam Kriya Shema, and you had in mind, wait a second, this is a great thing, I'm learning Chumash, it's the same words of the Shema I have to say right now. If you had in mind, you fulfilled your obligation, but it sounds like if you didn't, you wouldn't. Says the Gemara Shema Mina, you could infer from this, the mitzvah is tzriches kavana. The mitzvah is when you're doing a mitzvah, one of the commandments of the Torah, you have to have intent that you're doing it to fulfill the mitzvah that Hashem commanded you. Now, the reason why this is important, because this is difficult for Rabbah, who he says in Masechtas Reish Hashanah, and let's say you're blowing a shofar, and you're just playing a song, great instrument, you're playing, you happen to be blowing a tkiya, a shvarm teruah, he says you fulfilled the obligation, you did it, you don't have to have in mind that you were doing it, you did the mitzvah. Here you see from our mitzvah, not like, our Mishnah not like that, you see that you have to have kavana, and if not, you don't fulfill your obligation. Says the Gemara, no, mayim kimen liba. What does the Mishnah mean to say that if you had in mind? It means likrois, if you had in mind to read from the Torah. Meaning, says the Gemara, no, really, you don't have to have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah. But you have to have in mind that you're at least doing an act of reading. So if you're not having in mind to read, then that's what we're saying is not fulfilling your obligation. You don't have to have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah. Says the Gemara, likrois. You're saying that the person who is reading has to have in mind to read. But v'hakokari, you said it was someone who was kari b'Torah, he was reading, and then you're saying that, if he has in mind to read, he is reading. What does that mean? He's doing the act of reading. Says the Gemara, no, b'kari lahagia. We're talking about someone that was not reading. What do you mean he wasn't reading? He was reading. No, he was reading because he was editing the Sefer Torah if there was a mistake. So he wasn't even having in mind to read. He was having in mind to edit. Now, Tosfos has a difficulty with Rashi. He says, but Lamaisa, you read. What does that mean? You're reading Torah. Who cares? So Tosfos actually says a little bit more salient point, that he says that because someone who's reading to edit doesn't read the words appropriately. When you're reading to edit, l'totafos is written without a vav. So you want to read it, not l'totafos, because you want to know, is it without a vav? So you can read it l'tatfas. You can read it with a patach, because you want to know, is it written the right way? So if you're not having in mind likroi and rather l'hagia, you're not reading it the right way. So when the Mishnah says Mekivan Liba, what it means to say is, if you're having in mind to do the reading, not for the editing, and then you're going to read it the right way, then you fulfill the obligation, because if you're not reading it to read it, then you're actually reading it the wrong way, and for sure you're not going to fulfill your obligation. Turn in the Brisa that's going to talk about seemingly something different, but it's going to relate back to the halacha of our Mishnah. Kriya Shema, the halacha of Kriya Shema, what language can you say it in? So the first opinion says kiksava, the way it's written, which is in Lashon HaKodesh, written in the Torah in Lashon HaKodesh, in the holy language. So you got to say it in that language. That's Dibri Rebbe. And this is how we rule actually. You could say Kriya Shema in any language that you want to. Says the Gemara, my time of the Rebbe, what's the reason of Rebbe? So Amar Kra, because the pasuk says Nevarim. It says V'hayu, they shall be. Now, as we noted in the introduction, it always means V'haviyas in Yehu. It should be as they are, which is as they are in Lashon HaKodesh. That's how you have to read it. Now, says the Gemara, Rabbana, my time, what's their reason? So I'm across because the pasuk says in the parasha of Shema says Shema. Shema means any language that you hear, and this is what we wrote on the board, where they're coming from different words, where the Chacham are coming from the word Shema in any language that you hear, and Rebbe's coming from V'hayu, which is in Lashon HaKodesh. But then, as the Gemara is going to note, so how do they explain each other's sources? Says the Gemara, okay, well, the Rebbe Nami Hoksib Shema. What does Rebbe do with Shema? Doesn't Shema mean any language that you hear? Says the Gemara, no, Humi Boile, he needs it Hashmila Aznacha. It means something else. It doesn't mean any language that you hear. You should hear with your ears, it should be audible that you hear your own words that you're saying from your own mouth. That's what Shema is coming to teach. Says the Gemara, but Rabbanas are though they hold command like the opinion who says, which is the machlekes, we'll see in a later Mishnah. Lo yashmi lasna yatsa. If you don't hear with your ears what you said, you fulfilled your obligation. So Shema's not telling you that you have to hear it; rather, it's teaching you. You could say it in any language. Okay, says the Gemara, Rabban Nami B'Hayu. What do they do with B'Hayu? It doesn't say B'Habiyasnihu. It has to be as it's written. And in Lashon HaKodesh, says the Gemara, no, who they need it for something else. Shalayikra L'Mafreya. Yeah, it has to be as is, meaning in the order, and it can't be out of sequence. But it's not going to tell you that has to be Lashon HaKodesh, as we wrote on the board, that they learn different things from the other one's pasuk. Rebbe learns from Shema, Hashmal Azmucha, and the Chacham learn from B'Hayu, that it can't be backwards. Now, says the Gemara, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, where does he know this halacha that you can't read backwards? Says the Gemara, Nafkle midvarim hadavarm. Because it could have said in the pasuk where v'hayu dvarim ma'ela should be these words. Why v'hayu hadavar ma'ela? Rather, it's coming to expand hadavarm, the words, which again connotes as it is in its order and not backwards. You can't read it v'sharecha, beisecha, mezuzas. You have to read it in this sequence. But Rabbanan says the Gemara dvarim hadavarm leidashi. They don't expand the extra halacha from the extra hey. Sometimes stylistic, the Torah says hayu hadavar ma'ela. You're not going to expand another thing from that extra hey. Now, says the Gemara, as we noted on the board, it seems like we can make an inference. Lemember, is that to say from the fact that you need a pasuk by Kriyishma, according to Rebbe, that it has to be kiksava, has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. Is that to say the Sava Rebbe, the Rebbe holds, okay, the Chala Torah Kula, that means to say that regarding all the rest of the Torah readings, B'chalasha Nemra, that could be in any language you could read it? Says the Gemara, the proof. The Isa Gedai, because if you would think the same Lashon HaKodesh number that actually throughout the whole Torah, whenever you read something, has to be in Lashon HaKodesh, so V'hayu dekaz Rachmana Lamali, then why would I need V'hayu, according to Rabbi, to say, oh, Baba Yasnihu, Kriya should ask me in Lashon HaKodesh. Why do you need that? Everywhere in the Torah has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. What do you need a special pasuk? Kriyishma has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. Obviously, because Kol Torah too, Kula, it could be in any language. Says the Gemara, no, it was necessary. Really, I could tell you, Kol Torah Kula is also Lashon HaKodesh. I still needed that you shouldn't expound Shema in any language that you hear, like the Rabbanan. Since it says Shema, you would think to say like the Rabbanan, which means with any language that you hear. So therefore, you need V'hayu to say that no, don't darshan Shema. But really, I could tell you, Kol Torah Kula also has to be Lashon HaKodesh. Shema, you have to say specifically that it has to be in Lashon HaKodesh, because you would have thought to interpret that it could be in any language that you want to. Now the Gemara makes the same diuk in the other opinion. Remember, the Sabri Rabbanan is this to say that the Rabbanan that they hold the Chala Torah Kula regarding all the rest of the Torah when you lane, but Lashon HaKodesh, remember that it has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. Why? The Isa Gedaita, because if you would think to say B'chol Lashon Nemar that could be in any language, Shema the Kasav Rachmana, then why do you need Shema to tell you that could be in any language? Lamali, why do you need it for? What I mean, Chala Torah Kula could be in any language. So it was necessary. It says V'hayu. You would think V'hayu is like Rabbi Huda to say that has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. I need Shema to tell you it can be in every language, but really Kol Torah Kula could also be in any language. So there is not a raya regarding either opinion. What the halach is going to be different than Kol Torah Kula. Now, as we noted by the introduction, we said that our Gemara is going to talk about a different type of kavana than the Mishnah. The Mishnah talks about the kavana for the mitzvah. We're going to talk about now the translation and the focus of the words itself. Regarding the kavana, what's known as pirush hamilas, having in mind the words itself. What does V'hayu mean? First says the Brisa, and therefore this is why we said it's going to relate back to the halacha of a Mishnah, because we were expounding the word Shema and V'hayu. Now this Brisa expounds like the Chacham's interpretation of V'hayu, and in this Brisa is going to be the halacha of our Mishnah of Kavanah. So it says in the pasuk V'hayu it should be. So the Rabbanan, the way they interpreted it, Shalayikul Mafrei, Baba Yasni means to say that you shouldn't read backwards. Again, not like Rebbe who said it means to say Lashon HaKodesh. Now, when the pasuk continues, V'hayu hadvar me'ela alav avecha. So V'hayu, we said you can't go backwards. Hadvar, the word should be alav avecha, and this is what we wrote on the board. That alav avecha, according to everyone, needs kavana, but we're going to have a big machlekes regarding up until where do you have to have kavana. But it says alav avecha, on your heart. On your heart means to say your heart, that's where your focus is. So says the Brisa Yachol, you would think take kol parsha tzricha kavana, that the whole parsha needs to have intent, meaning you have to have in mind the words that you're saying. Therefore it says, these words, these is a limitation, which is ad kan until the end of the pasuk of alav avecha. That's what tzricha kavana. That's where you need to have kavana, and that's what we said. This is the first opinion that we're quoting, which machlekes Rashi and Taisus doesn't mean the first 2 psukim or 3 psukim, but up until this pasuk is where you need to have kavana. From here on, in tzricha kavana to Rebbe Eliezer. That's Rebbe Eliezer's opinion that we wrote down. Rebbe Eliezer says the first 2 or 3 psukim requires kavana. Now, Amalei Rabbi Kiva says to him, Hareyu Omer, but the pasuk says, as we continue to Beis, that which words am I telling you? Asher anochi mitzavcha hayom, that I command you today should be alav avecha on your heart. Mekanat Olam, it says Rabbi Kiva, I disagree with you. From here you learn shekola parsha kula tzricha kavana. The whole parsha requires kavana. Where do you see that? So Taisa explains, because if you would think to say that it's only the first 2 psukim, then it should have written, he holds asher tzivisicha, that which I have commanded you in the past tense on the past 2 psukim. because this is the last of the two psukim. When it says mitzavacha, sounds like even when I'm going to continue saying. But even says Taisus, even Rebbe Kiva requires ha'ela, the limiting words, because if not for ha'ela, I would have thought to say that even the Hayim Shemaya, the second parsha of Shema, would be included. But he disagrees. He says no. Asher nech mitzavcha yom comes to include the whole parsha, and that's what we wrote over here. That he's like Rabbi Yechon in these opinions that holds the whole first parsha of Ahavta requires to have kavanah. Now, as the Gemara says, going on this price, it says that the whole first parsha requires kavanah. Now, that those who learn this halachic quote of Rabbi Bechana, that the halach is like this opinion of Rabbi Kiva, ahad tanya on a different price, which also says the same opinion, but it's just a different price. Hakar Shema, someone says Shema, he has to have in mind his heart, which it sounds like actually means the whole Shema. Rebacha Mishum Rabbi Yehuda, which is the main opinion we're coming to quote, he says, Kiva Jekiva Liba Beparak Rishon, once you have in mind, you have kavanah by the first parak, meaning the whole parasha of Shema, Shuvei Nitzarch, then you don't have to have kavanah anymore, which again is the same as the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, the previous price. And on that, the same Amoram, Rabbi Bechana, Rabbi Yechanan, in this version he says, Halacha Krebacha Shomim Shem Yehuda, which again is the same thing. It's that the same opinion that the first parak of Shemayim V'Havta has to have kavanah. So again, so far we had two opinions. We had one opinion of 2 or 3 psukim, which is Machlekes Rashi and Taisus, or the whole first parsha. Continuing with another brisa. Tanya, we learned another brisa. It says V'Hayu, again, which is the opinion of the Rabban. What does V'Hayu mean to say Babi Yosnihei? You shouldn't read the words backwards. When it says Alavavecha, on your heart, which the Gemara is going to explain what this whole brisa is talking about, but again, that means to have kavanah. So Bezutra, he says as follows. He says, Ad Kan, up until here, meaning the first chapter, the first parak of Shema, up until here is mitzvahs kavanah. You need to have kavanah, which the Gemara initially is going to assume. That means to say, you only have to think it, but you don't have to actually say it. You just have to have intent. From here on, meaning by the second parsha of Shema, is mitzvahs kriya, is where you actually read the words. Rabbi Shem, he says the opposite. He says, Ad Kan mitzvahs kriya, up until here, meaning the first parsha of Shema is where you read the words, and the second parsha is where you only have intent, you only think the words, which is very hard to understand this brisa. And the Gemara is going to go through this brisa. Some Gersos actually have the words of Amamar going under Bezutra Oimer that he says, Ad Kan mitzvahs kavana, that the first parsha you have kavana, the second parsha you say the words. So on that the Gemara asks, wait a second. So we explained the first opinion of the brisa. Why is it different from here on, meaning the parsha of Shemaya? That you're saying is mitzvahs kriya, that there you only say the words, because the pasuk says over there in the second parasha, ledaber bam, to speak in them, you got to actually enunciate the words. Hachanami, what do you mean? Heroes in the first parasha of Shema, v'hafta, haksiv the pasuk says v'dibarta bam, you should speak in them. You see, you have to say the words there too. Why are you saying only to have kavan, only to think it? Says Gemara, you're right. Hachakama, this is what the Brisa was saying. Ad Kan, up until here by the first parasha, mitzvahs kavana v'kriya, is to have in mind and say the words. Whereas the second parasha of Shemaya, kriya kavana. You only have to say the word. You don't have to have kavana. This is really like the opinion of Rebbe Kiva that said you only have to have kavana by the first parasha of Shema. Now says the Gemara, but Maishna. Why is it different that Ad Kan up until here, meaning the parasha of Ahavta? Mitzvahs kavana v'kriya, you're saying you have to have in mind and you have to say the words because the Chesed says both these ideas in the first parasha of Shema. It says alav vech, which means having in mind, and b'dibarta bam, and you have to say the words hasam nami. What do you mean? Both these ideas, both these variables are in the Vayim Shemaya. Haksivit says alav vavchem on your heart, l'daber bam, to speak in them. Says Gemara, no, that you need for something else. It's not coming to say that you have to have kavanah. It's like Rabbi Yitzchak Dama that he says. It says in the pasuk v'samtem es devarai ela that you should place these words, and the pasuk there continues alav vavchem on your heart, and it says that you should ukshartem oisem loisal yetchem. You should tie it on your arm. What is this coming to say? This pasuk it's coming to say tzricha shetei sima keneged alev. It's just coming to say where are you coming to place the tefillin? It should be opposite the heart. When it says v'samtem, it's not going on the kriya and the kavana, rather it's going on the placing of the tefillin of shalyad, which you should place it on the upper part of the arm, opposite alav avavchem, opposite the area of the heart, on the biceps. That's what's coming to say. It has nothing to do regarding the mitzvah of kavana. That's what he wrote on the board, that although it says alav avavchem in the second parasha, but Rabbi Yechanan and those who hold like him, Rabbi Kiva, they hold you only have to have kavana in the first parasha, b'havta, because alav avavchem is not talking about kavana, it's talking about where you place the tefillin shalyad. Okay, we explained the first opinion of the Brisa. Amamar. Now we're going to the second opinion. Rabbi Yeshemi, he said what seemed to be the opposite. He said, Ad Kan mitzvahs kriya in the first parasha is where you only say the words. The second parasha is where you only have in mind. Says Gemara, why would it be the second parasha of Shemaya where the mitzvah is to have kavanah? It says on your heart, which again he obviously understands al-vavchem regarding having kavanah. But then here also in the first parasha, it says on your heart you also have to have kavanah. Says Gemara, you're right. Ad Kan mitzvahs kriya v'kavanah. So it seems like everyone's like Rebbe Kiva in this sense. Up until here is we have to say the words and have kavana. But Bekame Eilich, but from here and on, is actually a third opinion. Kavana beloy kriya, the opposite of the first opinion. Not to read without kavana. No, you have to have kavana without reading. The second parasha, you don't have to say, you have to have kavana, you have to think about it. Says the Gemara, but why? Why is it by the first parasha you have to say the words and have kavana? It says both having kavana and speaking. Hasam Nami in the second parasha too. Except it says it says both of them. Says the Gemara, now who? And this is the inverse of the first opinion. Hahu b'divrei terigsiv. The daber bam is not talking about the parasha of Shema. You don't have to say the words of Shema. The first parasha of Shema is talking about regarding kriya. Here it's talking about the words of Torah. Wait, this is talking about the second parasha of Shema. It's talking about of Divrei Torah, like it's obvious from the pasuk. The pasuk, when does it say v'debar tabam? It says v'lamaditem oisem es b'neichem v'debar tabam. What's v'debar tabam going on? Regarding teaching your sons the words of Torah. V'hachakam rachman. This is what the Torah is saying. It's not too much. You don't have to say the words of the second parasha. You only have to have in mind the words of the second parasha. It says v'debar tabam. The Torah is telling you agmir b'neichu Torah. Teach your sons Torah kihecha diligarsabam, so that they'll constantly be reviewing them l'daberbam. That they'll be saying. So that's the third opinion we mentioned, that we have Rabbi Shloimy that holds both parashas have to be said, because he says yes, you have to have in mind by the second one too, because it says alavavchem. But he holds you don't have to actually say the words, because he holds v'debar tabam is actually going on the words of Torah and not on the words of the Krishna. Now we continue. Turn up on, we're going to see a fourth opinion. We learn the Brisa that says Shema Yisrael, Hero Israel, Hashem Lekeinu, Hashem Echad, God, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. Says the fourth opinion, Ad kan tzricha kavanas alev divrei meir. It says only up until here, only the first pasuk itself, and that's what we wrote on the board. That was the fourth opinion. Holds you have to have kavana, not more than that. Not like all the other opinions up until now. And Amar Rav says halacha gremei, halacha follows a gremei, and the reason is like Tais says because Rav is a basra. He's the last opinion. We rule like Rav too, and that's the halacha that one only has to have kavanah by the first pasuk of Shema. Now, continuing on this theme regarding kavanah is a little bit related. With this, actually, a third kavanah. Up until now, we spoke about the kavanah of the mitzvah strichas kavanah, or kavanah of the kriya. Then we spoke about kavanah of pirush milas. Now we go into actually a third type of kavanah, which is deeper intentions when one is saying the words of the Shema. Tanya, we learn the Brisa. Some Chassidus says, "Kalamarach be'echad." Whoever is lengthy in the word echad of Shema, when you say the word echad, marichin la'yom v'shnaisav. So when he's lengthy in that word, they lengthen his days and his years. Now, Amar Ravacha B'Yaakov, he qualifies in this dalacha. You're not supposed to say the ches long. It's uvedalis. You're not supposed to say echa. No, the ches is not supposed to be long, because says Rashi, as long as you're saying echa, you haven't said anything. What are you lengthening the word echa? The echa is nothing. It's the dalid that you're supposed to be lengthening, which actually Shulchan Aruch Rav says the word dalid also not supposed to say long, because then it's going to have like a shva at the end. Echad, it's not echad. You're actually supposed to say it regular, but rather you're supposed to have in mind when you're lengthening your intention, the amount of time that you could implant in your heart, as the famous acronym is of echad is aleph ches dalid. Aleph means he's the one in the world. Ches is there's the seven skies and the earth, which is 7 and 1, which is 8. And the Dalet is for the 4 directions of the world. That's what you're supposed to have in mind. Be marich your kavana by the word echad. Moreover, Amar Vashi says, although you want to lengthen the Dalet, so you're not taking a long time, you're quickly getting through the ches because you want to go ahead and read the Dalet. But that's what he says. But don't be quick to what's called chap, to snatch the ches, meaning to say you shouldn't be saying. Although Rashi used the word chataf, it means a shva. You're going to end up saying, instead of saying a kamatz, which Rashi calls a patach, but basically you're supposed to say echad with a kamatz. If you're going to say echad, you're going to do it very quick. You're going to say the ches with a shva, you're not going to be pronouncing it correctly. So although you're supposed to be lengthening on the dal, not on the ches, but don't quickly say the ches too fast, because you want to say it appropriately with a kamatz, and then again say the dal maybe a little bit longer, but the primary is to have kavana by the dal. Now the Gemara brings a story related to this halacha. Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Yosef Kamed Rabbi Chia Barabba. Now Chazi Rabbi Chia saw that he was very lengthy by echad. He was saying a long echad. Amalei said to him, "Hey, kivin dam lichti. Once you already made God king, lamal lamata, you had in mind on the top, on the bottom, la beruchas hashemayim, the 4 sides of the universe. So leitzricha, you don't have to go ahead and do it anymore. You already did enough that you had in mind that God is one in heaven and earth, and the 4 directions. You don't have to go ahead and say it that much longer." Now, going back to the halachic discussion that we spoke about regarding kavana of the Pirush HaMilah, so Amar Rav Nosson bar Mar Okfa Amar Rabbi Yehuda, he says that even according to Beis Hillel, who they said previously in Daf Yud Aleph and Aleph, that you could do your work and say the Krishma at the same time, and you could continue going, but that's what he says, that they agree that up until Alav Avecha, that actually he says these words, Alav Avecha, the words on your heart, that means to say to have focus. So then b'amida, that you have to stand when you say those words. Now the Gemara wonders, alav avecha sagadat, you really think only those words you have to have kavanah? Says the Gemara, no, ela rather say ad alav avecha. Up until the words alav avecha, that has to be ba'amida, that you have to stand for. And this is actually the halacha, that although really allowed, as Beis Hillel had, we said in the previous daf, it says you could say it even when you're going, but no, really the first psukim up until that, you're supposed to stand and stop and have kavanah. Taisus brings it as the first pasuk. Here the Gemara is bringing it alav avecha, but since we rule, as we said in the previous day, the first pasuk you shouldn't be walking when you're saying it. That should be ba'amida. Here the Gemara is quoting it as up until alav avecha, the first few psukim, you should stop when you're saying it. From here on, then you don't have to, which is actually going like Rabbi Eliezer, who he holds that you have to have kavanah the first few psukim, so you have to stop in one place until you get to these psukim, because up until here is mitzvahs that you have to have kavanah. Rabbi Yechanan, he disagrees. He says, no, kala parsha kula b'mida, as we quoted previously the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, which was Rabbi Yechanan. He says the whole first parsha you have to stop and stand and have kavanah. As the Gemara points out, Rabbi Yechanan tamei that we quoted before, Domer Rabba Babachana Rabbi Yechanan. He says halacha gerbacha shomim shem Rabbi Yehuda, which is the whole first parsha you have to have kavanah. So therefore you have to stop and stand during the whole first parsha. You can't walk because you can't really have kavanah when you're walking. And again, like we said, that's the halacha which we rule in the first pasuk. You have to stop and stand when you're saying the first pasuk. Now, time on learn a brisa which the Gemara actually says in practice what we find Tanoim actually doing. So says the Brisa, Shema Yisrael Shema Kein Hashem Echad. That's the first pasuk of Shema. Says the Brisa, Zu Kriya Shema Shel Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. The whole Kriya Shema Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi only constituted the first pasuk of Shema, which the Mefarshim explained. He was Tairasam Nasi, so he only said, we don't say just the first pasuk, we say the whole Shema, but he only said the first pasuk. Now, however, Amalei Rav Rab said to Reb Chia, who they learned by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, says, Rebbe says, I never saw Rebbe, I never saw him accepting the yoke of heaven, meaning he would be teaching his students before Zman Kriya Shema. When it came to Zman Kriya Shema, I never saw him stop, and he kept on going till after. So I never saw him accepting, I never saw him saying Shema. So Amalei said to him, Bar Paxi, he says, Tamachacham, when he puts his hand over his face, meaning in the middle of the shir, you see sometimes he puts his hand over his face, which actually that's where the source of our custom that we put our hand over our face when we say Shema. It's then when he puts his hand over his face that he's accepting a yoke of heaven. It's then that he says the first pasuk of Shema. So therefore, that's exactly like we quoted. Now, says the Gemara, Chayz v'Goymer. After he finishes his shiur from teaching to his students, does he go ahead and then finish all the parashas of Shema? Or does he not go ahead and finish all the parashas of Shema and he suffices with the first pasuk of Shema? So it's actually machlekes bar kaparam. He says in the chayz v'gomer, he would not go ahead and finish off the rest of the Shema. B'shem b'Rebbe, he says chayz v'gomer, he would go ahead and finish the rest of the Shema. Now that they have a discussion. Amalei bar kapar Reb Shimon b'Rebbe says Bishlam Elididi says very well according to me. Damina in the chayz v'gomer, I say that my father did not go ahead and finish the whole parasha of Shema after he finished the shiur. Sahaindim had the Rebbe. That's why Rebbe always attempted. Every single time he was giving a shiur to his students, he would always bring into the shiur somehow a shemaita d'isba yitzis mitzrayim, a sugya, a topic that was talking about leaving Egypt, because he wanted to go ahead and talk about, in place of the parsha of tzitzis and emes v'yatzav, which he wasn't saying because he was giving the shiur the whole time, he wanted to fulfill the obligation of talking about yitzis mitzrayim, which he's supposed to have in the morning. Elidach, but according to you, the Amr Tchayz B'Gomer that you said later on after the shiur, he would go ahead and finish the whole parashas of Shema with emes v'yatzav. So lama leila duri. So why would he have to go ahead and try to mention in the shiur the parsha of Yitzis Mitzrayim if he's saying he was going to say it later on? Says the Gemara, no, Kedei lahaski Yitzis Mitzrayim bezmana. You're right, he would finish Kriya Shema later, but there's a zman of Kriya Shema, and the zman of Kriya Shema applies also to the parsha of the Yomim Yitzis Mitzrayim. That's why he would say it in the shiur, although he would go ahead and finish it later on. Now, continuing with this halacha that we said that it's like Rava, that like Remeir, that you only have to have kavanah in the first pasuk of Shema. On this theme, the Gemara continues. So the Gemara brings many different stories that we find. Halacha, all you have to have kavanah is by the first pasuk, and actually only say it even. Let's say someone said the first pasuk of Shema, and then he was overtaken by sleep. Says the Gemara, Yatziv, he fulfilled his obligation because the primary is the first pasuk. Now, Amalei Rav Nachman Ladari Avdi. Similarly, we find that Rav Nachman said to his slave Daru, "Bepsuku kamat saran." In the first pasuk, I want you to pain me. Meaning, if you see me dozing off, which this is actually the primary halacha, that I want you to pain me until I really wake up well when I'm saying the first pasuk. Tfei loik tzaran. Although we actually rule that you have to say more than the first pasuk, but to be really awake is the first pasuk. More than that, don't bother me. Meaning, you could say it dozing off. You don't have to have so much kavanah. Similarly, Amalei Rav Yisrael Rav Yisrael Berei Derabba. What did your father do? So Amalei said to him, the first pasuk, he really pained himself to really be focused to say the first pasuk. More than that, he didn't bother himself. Again, you don't have to have so much kavanah by the rest of Shema. Now, continue on this theme that when you bring Makabal on Mach Shemaim, you have to stop, you have to stand, you have to have kavanah, because it's you're accepting God as the king. So a related discussion, Amar Rabbi Yosef says, Parakdan, if someone's laying on his back and his face is facing upward, lo yikra kriya shema, you're not allowed, and this is the halacha, you're not allowed to say shema laying down on your back. Says the Gemara, mikru deli likri, what are you telling me? You're not allowed to say shema laying on your back, hamigna shabadami, but let's say just laying down, you're allowed to lay down on your back. But Rabbi Shloimy Levi, he would, and this is a halacha too, laida man the gania parket, he would curse whoever was laying down on his back, because maybe when someone's laying on his back, he might become aroused during his sleep, and then it's going to be straight up and obvious to everyone who's walking by, and that's disgraceful. Therefore, you're not supposed to lay down on your back. So I say you can't say shema laying on your back. You can't lay down on your back in the first place. Somebody said, no, migni, you're right, to lay down to sleep, but kimatzli, when you lean a little bit to the side, shaper dummy, that's okay. But that's what we're saying, but mikra, to say shema, avagav dematzli, and this is the ruling of halacha too. Even if you're leaning a little bit to the side, nami asa, it's also forbidden, because again, you're accepting God as the king of the world in like a haughty, arrogant way, laying on your back, even to the side, that's not appropriate. So that's the difference between laying in general and regarding shema. Now the Gemara asks, but Rabbi Yochanan matzli b'kar, what do you mean? Rabbi Yochanan, the great Talmudic sage, he actually laid on his back, leaning a little bit to the side, and he would say shema that way, and you said you can't. So the Gemara, no, Shani Rabbi Yochanan is different. The Balbasa, he was very heavy, it was very difficult for him, so as long as he wasn't laying directly on his back and tilting a little bit to the side, for him it was okay, but a regular person can't even lay on the side because that's an arrogant way. A heavy person is not considered arrogant. Now, as we mentioned on the board, the last item we're going to talk about in this daf goes back to just have a clarification, which takes a few lines to say this, about the halacha of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said regarding when and where are you allowed to interrupt in the middle of the Beruchas Kriyishma. So it said, "Ubeprakim," between the chapters. So the first opinion said, "Shayl v'chulu." What you could do is you could go ahead and greet someone who's an honorable person, and Umei should be also allowed to return his greeting. Says the Gemara, Meisha, when you talk about returning a greeting, mach mesmai. For whom are you talking about? If it's because of a dignified person, wait a second. Look at the Mishal Shal, you tell me you're allowed to greet such a person. Hadur Mibai, have to say you have to return his greeting. Obviously, you could greet him, which is more of a leniency, you're allowed to return his greeting. El rather says the Gemara, obviously, it means Shal that you're allowed to greet an honorable person. Umeshav Shal and you're allowed to return the greeting to any person, even to someone that's not an honorable person. And so too says the Gemara. Let's see the next part of the halacha. It says, middle of the Beruchas Kriyishma, you could greet someone that you're afraid of, even though it's the middle of the Beruchas Kriyishma. Umeshav, and you're also allowed to go ahead and return the greeting. Says the Gemara, Meshav mach masmai. Whose greeting are you returning? Ilim nehayira, if you mean to say something that you're afraid of, well, hashta mishal shal, if you're allowed to even greet him, so hadur mibai, you have to say you can return this greeting. Elim nehakavad, rather means to say even someone lesser, even someone that's just a normal person, in the middle of the psukim of Shema, you let him return this greeting. But says the Gemara, if that's the interpretation of the first opinion of our Mishnah, then of our Meir, Hainid Rabbi Yehuda says this is the same thing as the dispute in the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda. Did not learn in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, he says this same opinion. He says Be'emtza, in the middle of the brachas of Kriyishma, in the middle of the parasha of Shema, Shoyb Nehayir, you could greet someone that you're afraid of. Umeshav Nehakavad, and you can return this greeting if he's an honorable person. Ubeprokim, in between the chapters, which is more lenient, Shoyb Nehakavad, you could greet someone that's honorable. Umeshav Shalom Chaladim, you can return the greeting of every single person. You just reinterpreted the opinion of the Tanakama to be because he said it doesn't make sense to say returning the greeting of the person that you say allowed to greet, but that's the same thing as disputing as Rabbi Yehuda. So what's the machlekes? So it says the Gemara, and this is the Gemara's clarification of Chasur Mechzer. There are words missing in the Mishnah. Meaning when it talks about the Reisha and the Seifa of Reb Meir, it's supposed to say, Ein tzarech loymai, I don't have to tell you. And then it's not going to be a difficulty. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Between the chapters, yes, Shalom Ne'akov, you could greet someone that's honorable, and ve'ein tzarech loy meshu meishav. You're right, and I don't have to tell you that you're allowed to return this greeting. But he doesn't say you could return a lesser type of a person's type of greeting. It's just I don't have to tell you. So it's not umeshav, because of course. And really the words are supposed to say, and I don't have to tell you allowed to return this greeting. So to Be'emtza, middle of the chapter, you could greet someone that you're afraid of. I don't have to tell you that you're allowed to return this greeting. That's the Reb Meir. Yehuda, he's more lenient. He says, no, Be'emtza, middle of the chapter, yes, I agree to you, you could only greet someone that you're afraid of, but he's more lenient. He holds a Meshav Ne'akavad, you could go ahead and return someone's greeting that's honorable, even less than that. As you continue to have a Yadalam and Alv, and between the chapters, Shav Ne'akavad, you could greet someone that's honorable, and here's where he's more lenient, Umeshav Shalom Chaladim, he can return every single person's greeting. And says the Gemara, it says the same word. Tanya Malchus on the Brisa that just says exactly as we clarified. Hakari Shema, someone says the Shema. Upagabay Rabbi Golamen, that someone that's honorable, his teacher or someone that's greater than him comes to him. So beprakim between the chapters, Shob Ne'akavad. Since this person is honorable, you're allowed to greet him. And this is exactly as we amended the wording of the Mishnah. It says the Brisa, you don't have to say you have to return his greeting. Middle of the chapters, no, then you can't greet your Rebbe. You can only greet someone that you're afraid of. I don't have to tell you that you're supposed to return this greeting. That's the Remeir. Rabbi Yehuda, he says more leniently. He says the middle of the chapters. Shalom now you could greet someone that you're afraid of. Umesh now covered you could return the greeting of someone that's even less than that, just more honorable. But Prakim between the chapters, Shalom now covered you could greet someone that's more honorable. Umesh of Shalom Adam you could even return the greeting of every single person. Again, exactly as we clarify what does Umesh mean in the Mishnah. So what we spoke about today in today's Daf and Beruchas Daf Gimel, we continue from the theme of the previous Daf regarding Yitzis Mitzrayim taking a secondary place in Moshe Mashiach. So too Yaakov took a second place to his name Yisrael. But we said by Avram Avinu is different. It's not that Avram took a second place to Avram. Actually, one violates a positive commandment, even maybe a negative prohibition, if he calls Avraham Avram. And we finished the first parak, Mazel Tov. We moved on to the second parak, Parak HaKaireh, which talked about continuing on the theme of Hilchas Kriya Shema and its brachas. Which in our Mishnah we spoke about two primary ideas: one about having kavanah when you're saying Kriya Shema, and about when and how are you allowed to be mafsik. We spoke about that in our Gemara, in our Daf, we spoke about two different, and actually three different, but primarily two types of kavanas. One is to fulfill the mitzvah, what's known as mitzvah srichas kavana, and those regarding kavana, meaning having in mind, focusing the translation when you're reading the words. We had a machlekes in the Mishnah, which we're going to see on the next Daf primarily, regarding the hefsek, where, and for who, which we spoke about at the end of our Daf, this idea of where and for who, and the reason of the order of the three parashas of Shema, which first is Mekabel Omar Shemaim, then Ol Mitzvahs, and then the Parasha B'Yom, which is only during the daytime. Our Gemara thought to say, when it says in the Mishnah you have to have Kavanah for Kriya Shema, oh, don't you see Mitzvah Srichas Kavanah, which is for Mitzvah? Says the Gemara, no, it's having in mind for the reading itself. You have to at least have in mind that you're reading. Again, Machlekes Rashi and Tais, how to qualify that. Is it because you have to have in mind for the reading, and not just for editing, or because, like Tais says, you're actually not going to say the right words? Then we had a Machlekes regarding what language do you have to say Shema in, because again, that ends up relating back to the words we quote in the first price, so that's why we bring it in, of what language. Now, because of that, there are machlekes in the word Shema and V'hayu. Rebbe, he learns from V'hayu that you have to say in Lashon HaKodesh, because Havayas means Kavayas in Yehu. Chacham learns from the word Shema, B'chalot Shema, you can say in any language that you hear. So what do they do with each other's pesukim? So Rebbe holds that Shema means Hashma La'aznecha, you got to hear what you're saying. Chacham don't hold, you have to hear what you're saying. And the Chacham learns from V'hayu, not L'mafreya, and Rebbe learns that from V'hayu Dvarim, instead of Dvarim, it says Hadvar. Now, does that mean by the rest of the Torah it's different? That if here you say every language, does that mean that throughout the whole Torah it could be has to be in Lashon HaKodesh? Or by Rebbe that it says here Lashon HaKodesh, that means to say because the rest of the Torah is even Mechalashon? The Gemara says no, because since you have the other word that you would have thought Shema would be different, that you have to say the other word, but really it could be Kol Torah is the same thing. Then we said, okay, until where do we need to focus? Because the word Alav Vecha means that you have to have kavanah. So we had four different opinions. Rabbi Eliezer holds the first two or three psukim, Machlokes Rashi and Taisus, that's where it says Alav Vecha. These words, Alav Vecha, is by the first two psukim, that's where you have to have kavanah. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, the first parasha of Shema and V'ahavta, you have to have kavanah, because although the second parasha also says Alav Vavchem, but that means regarding where you put the tefillin. Third opinion, Rabbi Yishai has, no, both parashas, says Alav Vecha, Alav Vavchem, both parashas you have to have kavanah. Actually, he holds you only have to have kavanah by the second parasha, you don't have to actually even say the words, because the Debar Tabam actually is referring to the words of Torah. But you have to have kavanah by both parashas. The fourth opinion, Rabbi Meir says, though, only the first pasuk, because Alav Avecha, Alav Avchem is only kavanah, is actually the second parasha is only kavanah, and he doesn't hold that Alav Avecha means to say that you have to have kavanah by the whole parasha. He holds that only the first pasuk is the primary Shema, and therefore you don't have to have kavanah anything beyond that. Actually, that's how we paskin. It's only by the first pasuk of Shema. Then we spoke about that if someone's marich by echad, they're marichin al yom shnaisav, and we said you have to say the word echad, but only by the dalet. And we mentioned from the Shulchan Aruch, you don't even say the word dalet so long. You have kavanah that because God is as master, He's the one on the seven heavens and the earth and the four directions of the world. We spoke of Rebbe's custom only by the first parasha, first pasuk of Shema, and then we said that you can't say Shema lying on your back, but you actually can never lie on your back. Kriya Shema is not even on a tilt. And then again, we ended off with a clarification of the Mishnah regarding the Girsa of a Meshiv, that you return your greeting. What do you mean? Then what does that mean? Of course, if you could greet, of course you return the greeting, it means to say that we don't have to tell you, and therefore that's different than Rabbi Yehuda said you could even go one step lower when you're returning a greeting. It's even, let's say, l'chaladam, when you could only greet me'akaved. That's the machlekes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Thank you, Torah, any time for hosting us.